The Black Death, 1347, the plague that devastated Europe. In the year 1347, a silent terror crept into Europe, one that would bring death not by sword, but by breath. It came not with an army, but aboard merchant ships, hidden in the blood of rats and the bite of fleas. What followed was not merely an epidemic, it was a reckoning. This is the story of the Black Death, the most devastating pandemic in recorded history. Arrival of the plague. The Black Death arrived in Europe through the bustling ports of the Mediterranean. In October of 1347, 12 Genoese trading ships docked in the Sicilian port of Messina. What they carried would change the course of history. Sailors on board were either dead or dying, their bodies covered in mysterious black boils that oozed pus and blood. The city authorities quickly expelled the ships, but it was too late. The plague had already found its way ashore. From Sicily it spread rapidly, to France, to Spain, to England, like fire across dry fields. The nature of the disease. The disease struck without mercy. High fever, chills, vomiting, and the infamous buboes, painful swellings in the groin, armpits, and neck. Modern science would later identify it as Yersinia pestis, a bacterium transmitted by flea bites, primarily from black rats. But in 1347, people had no idea what they were facing. Some believed it was a punishment from God. Others blamed minorities, foreigners, or even the alignment of the planets. There was fear, but more than fear, there was hopelessness. The mortality rate, over 50% in many cities, panic and collapse. As the death toll mounted, entire cities were brought to their knees. Doctors, priests, and nobles fled. Families abandoned one another, corpses lined the streets. In places like Florence and Paris, the dead outnumbered the living. Burial grounds overflowed, mass graves became common. In Avignon, so many people died that the Pope consecrated the Rhone River so bodies could be thrown into it. Death was not a visitor, it was a constant companion. The flagellants and the fear of God. With no cure in sight, some turned to radical acts of penance. Groups of flagellants roamed from town to town, whipping themselves in the streets to atone for mankind's sins. Covered in blood and chanting hymns, they believed the plague was divine retribution. The church, overwhelmed, struggled to maintain order. Many clergy perished tending to the sick, others hid. Faith was shaken, some turned to mysticism, others to violence, scapegoats, and persecution. Desperate for answers, societies turned inward. Jews were blamed and persecuted in many cities. Entire communities were burned or exiled based on rumors of well poisoning. The pandemic didn't just kill the body. It infected the soul of Europe with suspicion and hate. The social fabric began to unravel. Order gave way to chaos. The aftermath. By 1351, the plague had run its initial course. An estimated 25 to 50 million people, nearly half of Europe's population, had perished. Fields lay untended. Villages vanished. Labor shortages gave rise to economic shifts. The feudal system began to crumble. Survivors demanded higher wages. The balance of power tilted, but the scars ran deeper than economics. Europe had looked into the abyss, and it would never be the same. Legacy of the plague. The Black Death ushered in a new age. Medical science, though still primitive, began to evolve. The idea of quarantine was born. Art and literature turned darker, more introspective. Skeletons and death motifs entered murals and manuscripts. The danse macabre became a symbol of the era. Religion, once unshakable, faced questions it could not answer, and most importantly, the belief in human invincibility was shattered. People began to live not for eternity, but for the moment. Modern reflection. Today, the Black Death remains a chilling reminder of nature's power and of how civilizations respond when faced with extinction. It was more than a disease, it was a mirror. And in that mirror, Europe saw both its weakness and its capacity for transformation. In the silence of abandoned streets and in the graves of millions, the Black Death whispered a truth that echoes even now: that life is fragile and history is built upon the bones of the forgotten. The Black